All right, let's jump into another deep dive. Today we're looking at Bitcoin, trying to figure out, how its role is changing.
Hmm.
Is it all about privacy, like a lot of people think, or is it becoming, um, well, something more like digital gold?
Yeah, digital
We've
gold.
got three sources to help us figure this out. There's this article from Coin Tribune called "Privacy in Bitcoin: All You Need to Know,"
Okay.
and we've also got a U.S. Treasury report. It's for fiscal year 2024, Q4.
Interesting.
And then a Forbes Advisor article just on like Bitcoin basics.
Right. So we've got like the crypto community perspective on
Yeah.
privacy,
Yeah.
then the government's take on it as an asset, and kind of the general like what is Bitcoin?
Right,
Like
exactly.
how does it work?
Perfect. Okay, so the Coin Tribune article, it's written by Laura Dachon C.
Okay.
And it really digs into all the privacy stuff. Like at first it makes you think Bitcoin equals anonymity.
Uh-huh.
Is that really true though?
So well, the article kind of clarifies that it's more like pseudonymity, not really true anonymity.
Okay.
It's like this: your Bitcoin transactions, they're linked to these public addresses, right?
Yeah.
Not directly to your name. Like it's like using a screen name online.
Yeah, yeah.
Someone could like connect the dots, like your screen name to your real identity, but it takes some digging.
Right. So it's not completely anonymous, but it's also not like super obvious who's behind each transaction.
Exactly.
Okay, I get that.
And here's where it gets interesting. The blockchain itself is completely transparent.
Oh, wow.
Anyone can use these things called blockchain explorers and see every single Bitcoin transaction.
Boy, so it's like a public record of every Bitcoin movement ever.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's kind of wild. It's like super secure, but also maybe not great for privacy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. It's a double-edged sword.
Hmm?
Great for security, prevents fraud, but if someone really wants to investigate, they could probably trace your transactions back to you.
So then, like, what can you do if you want more privacy when you're using Bitcoin?
Well, the article talks about a couple of methods. One is using a new Bitcoin address for every transaction,
Okay.
so it's harder to link them all together.
Makes sense.
Another is using mixing services.
Mixing services, what are those?
So basically, they jumble up transactions from lots of different users.
Huh.
Makes it really hard to trace the path of the Bitcoins.
Okay, yeah.
Imagine like taking a bunch of different colored marbles and mixing them all up in a bag
Yeah.
and then trying to figure out which marble came from where. It's kind of like that.
I get it. But wouldn't that also like make it easier for people to use Bitcoin for bad stuff
Right.
if their transactions are harder to trace?
Yeah, that's definitely a valid concern. The article does mention that, mixing services could be used for things like money laundering and other illegal activities.
Right.
It's complicated. No easy answers there.
It seems like there's always this trade-off between privacy and transparency with Bitcoin.
Absolutely, yeah. And as we'll see, this whole digital gold thing makes it even more complicated.
Right, right. Okay, before we get into that, I'm curious about something.
Sure.
The Coin Tribune article, it mentions something called Wasabi Wallet and the Lightning Network
Yeah.
as ways to improve privacy. Can you explain those?
So Wasabi Wallet, that's specifically designed for privacy. It uses this technique called coin join, and it mixes your coins with others to hide where they came from.
Okay.
The Lightning Network, that's different. It's like a layer on top of the main Bitcoin blockchain.
Hmm.
It makes transactions faster and cheaper, and it can also provide some privacy because not all the details are recorded on the main blockchain.
So it's like having different levels of privacy depending on what you're using.
Exactly. It really depends on your needs and priorities. And it's interesting, the Forbes Advisor article, it points out that most people in the US, they're using Bitcoin as an investment, not for everyday purchases.
Oh, that's a good point. So maybe how people are actually using Bitcoin like influences how much privacy matters to them,
Yeah, could be.
which that leads us to this whole digital gold idea.
Yeah, right. To understand that, we got to look at this US Treasury report.
Okay, let's do it. So what's the government saying about Bitcoin? And why are they calling it digital gold?
Well, well, the report really highlights this huge jump in Bitcoin's value. Like in 2015, the market cap was only like $6.4 million.
Wow.
And now it's around 2 trillion.
That's insane.
Yeah, and they specifically mention big institutional investors, like BlackRock, MicroStrategy,
Yeah.
buying up tons of Bitcoin.
So even the Treasury is like acknowledging this massive surge in value.
Oh yeah.
I guess that kind of makes the digital gold label make more sense.
Right, exactly. And it gets even more interesting. The report actually um it kind of frames Bitcoin as this potential store of value, like similar to gold.
Okay.
But in the world of what's it called? Decentralized finance.
DeFi.
Yeah, DeFi.
Okay, so DeFi. I don't really know much about that.
So think of it as like a parallel financial system
Okay.
that operates on blockchain technology. It bypasses the traditional banks and institutions.
Interesting.
And the Treasury, they seem to think that Bitcoin is going to play a big role in that system,
Mhm.
especially as a way to hold value, even when things are kind of shaky economically.
But isn't Bitcoin like super volatile?
Yeah.
I mean, the price is always going up and down like crazy.
Right.
How can it be a reliable store of value if it's so unpredictable?
Yeah, that's a good point. The report, it does mention that, Bitcoin's price has been like heavily influenced by speculation,
Mhm.
which is a big part of the volatility.
Yeah, yeah.
But they also suggest that the underlying technology, like blockchain itself, has the potential to completely change like how we think about finance.
So like, despite the risks, they're still saying it could be a game changer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this kind of ties back to, that corporate FOMO we were talking about earlier.
Right, right.
The report suggests that more and more companies are starting to realize that Bitcoin might be more than just like a speculative asset.
Mm.
It could become a fundamental part of the future of finance.
So we've got this interesting kind of contrast.
Yeah.
On one hand, we have this focus on privacy and anonymity, like in the Co-Tribune article.
Right.
But then there's this growing idea of Bitcoin as a legit investment, even a potential store of value, like the U.S. Treasury is saying. Do you think those two things can coexist?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right.
Like if Bitcoin truly becomes this digital gold, is that going to attract even more attention from governments,
Mm-hmm.
more regulation, and could that in turn like impact the privacy aspects that originally drew so many people to Bitcoin?
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
And it makes me think about how the Contribune article mentioned those other cryptocurrencies like Monero and Zcash,
Right, right.
those privacy-focused ones. Do you think like those might become even more popular if Bitcoin gets more heavily regulated?
It's definitely possible. If the focus kind of shifts away from privacy as Bitcoin moves towards this digital gold status,
Yeah.
people who really value anonymity, they might turn to those other coins, the ones that are specifically designed for privacy.
It's wild how like the whole landscape is constantly shifting,
Hmm.
Different cryptocurrencies might end up serving totally different needs and purposes.
Absolutely. And as things keep evolving, we need to think about the challenges and opportunities that are coming up for Bitcoin.
Like what kind of challenges?
Well, one big one is scalability.
Okay.
The Bitcoin network, it can only handle a certain number of transactions per second,
Mm-hmm.
which can lead to like really high transaction fees.
Yeah, I've heard people complain about that.
Especially when things are busy.
So how's that going to work if Bitcoin is supposed to become this mainstream thing?
That's the big question, right?
Yeah.
Developers are working on solutions like that Lightning network we mentioned before.
Right.
To try and make transactions faster and cheaper.
Okay.
But we'll see if those solutions can actually scale up enough to handle, widespread adoption.
Okay, so scalability is a big challenge. What about the opportunities? Like what's driving this digital gold idea in the first place?
Well, one major factor is this growing distrust in traditional financial institutions. Like
Yeah.
after the 2008 financial crisis, a lot of people they lost faith in banks and governments.
Right. They're looking for other ways to store their wealth, like something that feels more more secure, less likely to be manipulated.
Exactly, yeah. And Bitcoin, with its decentralized nature and limited supply, it seems to offer that alternative. It's like a digital version of gold,
Yeah.
something that can't be controlled or manipulated by any single entity.
So it's like Bitcoin's appeal comes from the very things that make it like different from traditional finance.
Yeah.
It's decentralized, it's scarce, and it's based on this groundbreaking technology, blockchain.
You got it. And
Yeah.
those are the features that are attracting attention from both, individual investors and those big institutional players.
Wow, we've covered a lot today. We started by looking at the privacy stuff with Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Then we got into this whole digital gold narrative, and now we're talking about the challenges and opportunities.
It's been quite a journey.
Yeah. And we're really just scratching the surface here.
Yeah, for sure. It's a complex world. It's changing so fast.
I have a feeling we'll definitely be talking about this again.
Oh, definitely.
But for now, let's wrap things up.
Okay.
Leave our listeners with some final thoughts to think about.
Sounds good.
Okay, so we've gone from Bitcoin being this like mysterious privacy focused thing to something that like governments are calling digital gold and these big institutions are pouring billions into.
Yeah.
What does this all mean for like the average person who's maybe just hearing about Bitcoin for the first time?
That's a great question. I think the main thing to remember is that Bitcoin is at a crossroads right now. It's trying to find its place in the world, and there's a lot of uncertainty.
It's like Bitcoin's growing up and we don't really know like
Yeah.
what it's going to be when it's all grown up.
Yeah, exactly. Like, will it stay true to its roots as this decentralized private system,
Yeah.
or is it going to become, more integrated into the traditional financial system? Maybe at the cost of some of those original ideals.
It's a tough question.
Yeah.
Thinking back to the Treasury report,
Yeah.
do you think like them using that term digital gold, does that signal like a change in how governments are viewing Bitcoin?
I think it might.
Yeah.
If governments start to see Bitcoin as a legitimate asset class, a store of value like gold,
Mm-hmm.
they're probably going to want to, exert more control over it,
Yeah.
which could mean like stricter regulations
Right.
and how that impacts, the decentralized nature of Bitcoin and DeFi. That's still up in the air.
Yeah. It's like we're watching this financial revolution happen in real time. And like with any revolution, there are going to be winners and losers.
Exactly. And that raises another question,
Yeah.
who's actually going to benefit the most from from Bitcoin's rise?
Right.
Will it be the early adopters, the ones who saw its potential, right from the start,
Mm-hmm.
or the institutional investors,
Yeah.
the ones pouring billions into it now?
Yeah.
Or is there still a chance for everyday people to get involved,
Mm-hmm.
to benefit from this potential shift in the financial landscape?
It's a lot to think about.
Yeah.
We talked about privacy concerns, the whole digital gold idea, the challenges, the opportunities. It's clear that this is a really complex topic.
Definitely. And we've only just scratched the surface.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So for anyone listening who's maybe feeling a little overwhelmed by all of
Yeah.
this, what's the one thing you'd tell them to keep in mind as they try to navigate the world of Bitcoin and crypto?
I'd say stay curious,
Okay.
stay informed. And don't be afraid to ask questions.
Yeah.
This is a space that's constantly changing, and there are no easy answers.
Right.
Do your own research, think critically,
Mhm.
and be ready to adapt as things evolve.
Great advice. Well, this has been a really fascinating deep dive into the world of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And we went from those like really specific details about privacy to this grand vision of digital gold. And we explored that tension between those two ideas.
It's fascinating.
Thanks for joining us on this journey.
It's been a pleasure.
And to everyone listening out there, keep exploring, keep learning.
Huh.
And remember, the future of finance is in your hands.
Yeah.
Until next time.
Mm-hmm.